Hello, hello.
Hi.
Welcome to another episode of Too Legit to QT. I am your host, Quoia, and we have today your co-host, Tish. She is back and pregnant as ever. This is the first time our audience is going to be able to see you pregnant. So we definitely want to get a visual. But today we have the beautiful, the talented Kristen Fickman, writer extraordinaire, friend, wife to a friend of the show, Andy Fickman. So we are just so excited to be able to chop it up and chat with you today. And we're just excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
I'm so excited to be with you guys. This is going to be so fun. And Tish, I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So
Can we get a visual, bestie, of
Yeah,
this?
show us that bump.
The audience, they want to see. They want to see.
Yes, give the people what they want.
Yes. So she's having twins, guys. Look at that. Strong mama. Strong mama.
Yeah.
We're all about strong mamas up in here. And Kristen is the mother of a beautiful baby. Well, she's not a baby anymore.
No,
I think
she's
before
three and a half now. Going, definitely on like 17. Real strong and opinionated. And she told me and Andy yesterday, she goes, I know how I got in your belly. And I was like, oh, you do? Oh, we're doing this. And she goes, yeah, you ate me. And I was like, yep, that's it. Good job.
You ate me.
Let's have it. And then she looked at me, she goes, you going to eat me again? And I was like, no.
Oh my gosh.
It's such a fun age. And she's talking. I mean, she goes to this daycare preschool program that's incredible, but you pick her up and it's just nonstop. From the time she gets in the car, and it's so sweet and precious, and we love it. She's Paw Patrol obsessed right now and loves Daniel Tiger. And so it's really fun, and it's opened Andy and I up to some new programming. So it's all good.
Her Wednesday picture, the Wednesday from Netflix picture, killed me. It was so cute. The face, I was like, why is her face like she literally
is that the Addams Family?
Yes.
Her face. Yes. I was like, she is all in character with Wednesday. I was like, look at that face.
She's a little performer. Yeah. So our very good friend Al Goff co-created that show with his partner Miles Miller, and Al is just like, I could spend the whole podcast probably talking about him. He's been such a good friend and mentor to me, and he's wonderful. And so we have been so excited for this show to come out, and then for it to, I think it broke every Netflix record for first week viewership, and it's just crushing. And like Jenna Ortega is incredible. Her Wednesday is just like phenomenal. And so it's been so fun. And she woke up on Wednesday and said, I want to wear my Addams Family shirt. And I was like, all right, but if we're doing this, we're doing this. And so I did the braids, and we got some black sweatpants, and she went to school and she told everyone she was Wednesday, and it was so fun. So she's just kind of started doing that. It's new for us. It's like, I feel like she just started talking. And now, turns out they have opinions, and but yeah, it's really fun. And we had such a fun time doing that. And everyone at her preschool thought it was really fun. So,
oh my gosh.
I love that. Well, you are a great mom. You're like, we see it all over your social media, all over your Instagram. You definitely are #mom goals. Me and Tish are always talking about it. We're like, Kristen is living her best life, and I would like to partake in that as well.
Oh my gosh.
But you also are this amazing writer, and so we just want to talk to you about all things you and the different parts of your life, and just like how you got into writing, like what inspired your love for writing and screenwriting in particular. You went to Stanford. Did you study writing there? Tell us a little bit about that.
So, I really think, looking back, I think it started really young. I was so into TV. I was so into movies. Like I was like the ultimate consumer. We still are, but I mean, I watched so much TV. I remember at a really young age begging to stay up to watch like Nick at Night, like I Love Lucy and Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie. And I mean, I think it was also like the Dick Van Dyke Show, like some real like old school programming. But I was just, I mean, I was in love with Lucille Ball at such an early age and just I really, really took in everything. And then like sitcoms, Full House. I was of that kind of, what was it? TGIF era.
Right. Yes. Oh, this is like it's like a millennial throwback here.
Oh yeah, exactly. And so, you know, I really kind of grew up with that. And then I was a big reader, and my dad read to me every night. My dad and I were very close, and he started me with Boxcar Children and then Nancy Drew. And so I was really, really into that. And then, you know, of course, like Harry Potter came into the mix when I was in grade school. And so I was a really, really voracious reader. And so I think those two things kind of my whole life were always influencing me. But my whole family's in medicine. So I thought, well, I'll be a doctor. I'll be a nurse. I'll do something in medicine. And then I got to school, and I actually went to boarding school in New Hampshire for high school. I thought it was Hogwarts. And so I was like, there are definitely going to be some secret passageways. And I loved it, but it really opened my world. I was from small town Minnesota. And so there I started to kind of fall in love with writing, loved all my English classes. I had this one teacher named Pam Paris. I almost always write a character after her in everything now. And she would sit down with me and kind of go through like word for word a lot of my essays and say like, well, you don't need that word. Do you? Like, read it without that word. And I'd be like, oh, she's right. Or she'd be like, this is passive. Like, we don't need to say this. You can change it to this. And she'd say like, what's a more fun word, you know, for running? Like, what speed? Are they sprinting? Are they sauntering? Are they, you know, skipping? Like, what's more fun? And so she really, I really credit her with my, like, I guess, nitty gritty basic technique, because she really, I mean, I spent hours with her, and she was just a really great inspiration. But it wasn't really until in between high school and college, I had caught like a little acting bug, which was a mistake. But and I went to LA for a little bit, and I had this wonderful acting coach who was married to Andy's producing partner. And so that was how I met Andy eventually, not at the time, but that was kind of my entree into the industry. And then I realized that, you know, this acting probably isn't for me. I was a theater major at Stanford. And I did, and now they have a creative writing minor, but at the time, I don't think they did, but I did all the creative writing courses that you could. And so by the time I got to college, I knew I wanted to be a writer. And I did not know how. I did not know if it was possible. I did not know, you know, it seems, I don't know. I think especially coming from Minnesota, it just doesn't seem like a thing you can do, right? It seems like, oh, TV shows up and I love watching it, but where does it come from and how does it get there? Like it's just not, you know, there are not a lot of entertainment career fairs out here. So when I was at Stanford, I really fell in love with it. I had a great playwriting instructor named Amy Freed, who was just incredible. And I did my first play there. And that's when I was really like, I remember getting my first laugh, like sitting in the audience and my writing getting a laugh and me being like, this is the best feeling on earth. Feeling like they laughed at me. They think I'm funny. They like me. Oh my God. Like I just was so thrilled. And so that's really, really Stanford was when I was like, I have to give it a shot. But I do think a lot of things influenced me in a subtle way while I was growing up that I now look back on and go, oh, you know, of course, like that was my favorite thing. And now it makes sense. So lots of good inspiration along the way. And I think you still, you know, every day, all the content we watch inspires us. And so I think that it's important to kind of keep consuming and keep that like love of what you originally inspired you in film and TV. I mean, it's such a difficult industry, and to kind of turn something on and go, oh, that feeling, that's why I love to do it. So I think that's important. But I would say other creators were at the beginning and still are kind of my biggest inspo.
Are there any writers that you kind of like admire now?
Oh my God. I'm the biggest fangirl. Like, I should not be allowed out. Like sometimes when we're on set, I'm like, I shouldn't be here. I'm so like, I get so excited. I mean, the obvious Queen Shonda is just like,
Bridgerton.
Oh my God,
so good. And I just, everything that they do at Shondaland is just incredible.
Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with her.
Oh, she's like everything. And even she wrote the movie Crossroads, the Britney Spears movie, like a long time ago.
And you are like a true through and through millennial. You are bringing up like all of the things that I used to watch. I'm like, oh, I love that movie. And I don't care what anybody says.
I brought up a Cinderella story in a pitch the other day, and the execs were like, yes.
Oh my God.
It's coming back though. That whole like era is definitely like coming back. People are like looping it back through and through and through.
Oh yeah. I introduced my nieces are college age, and I'm always like, you gotta watch this, you gotta watch this, you gotta watch this, and everything. They're like, wait, why are these so good?
Yeah.
Golden era.
Did you watch Anne of Green Gables? Because me and Bestie were having a conversation about that, and she was like, well, hasn't everybody? I said, no, they haven't. Because when I bring it up, people are like, what? How do you know about that? Did you read the books and did you watch the
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. By the way, classic.
Yeah, I love Anne.
Yeah, for sure. But so Shonda forever. She is like my ultimate. I love what Mike White is doing with White Lotus right now. I think like the whole like class war thing is so cool, and those characters are just like fresh and so fun to like, you'd watch him do anything. So I really admire him. Also loved him on Survivor, low key, like big Survivor fan. And then Al, who I previously mentioned, Al and his partner Miles, they did Smallville, millennial. They did Smallville for 850 seasons or however long it ran, and they have a very prolific film and TV career, which I think is really fantastic and interesting. They did I Am Number 4, incredible, Spider-Man's, like. And so I really look up to them a lot because I think it's so fun. I want to work in both film and TV, and I think it's so fun to be good at those mediums. I mean, there's so many people I just absolutely idolize. Man, who else do I absolutely love? Carlton Cuse, so good. I mean, there's so many, but I think that right now it's such a creator's medium. I mean, there's so many shows, there's so much content, so many fun voices. Andy did Heathers the music, or does Heathers the musical still, and Kevin Murphy and Larry O'Keefe, who wrote that, are just incredible. And so there's so many I look up to.
I love that.
Also, when you're talking about like, there's still a lot of different creative voices now, because we're a little like, when I started out, it wasn't as diverse as it is right now. What have you seen like in the writer's room, like as far as like the different voices?
There are so many great voices out there, and I think it's so interesting because with streamers and everybody, there's a seat at the table for everybody, and I think that that's so important. And it's so important to have those characters feel authentic, and that shift to making sure that everybody's represented, and what you're seeing on screen is what you see in your daily life is so important. And I think that the push for that right now is huge. And I think that there's a lot of there's so much wonderful representation happening. Obviously, there still needs to be more, but I think that there's definitely a positive change happening, even if we're not there yet. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I see
Have
that.
you like encountered? Oh, go ahead, Bestie.
Go ahead, Bessie. Go ahead.
Well, like, have you encountered any like obstacles or challenges in like fighting for your character's like authentic voice to be seen and to be heard? Being a woman in the writer's room, like, how have you been able to navigate that? Because sometimes like people might want to come in and completely change the core of the characters and whatnot.
You know, it's so interesting because I think there's such a fine line between taking notes as a writer, because that's a really important part of the process, and holding on to what you know is true. I think a note that I used to get that I do not get anymore, that I'm so happy about, is I used to get the she's unlikable note a lot. I used to get, I don't think she's likable. And I used to get it from men. And I would be like, okay. And yeah, and now I think that there's probably a note within that note that's true and rings true. And that would be up to me to look at and find. But I don't like the wording of that note. I don't like, because there are unlikable people everywhere. There are, I mean, I would argue that, you know, a show like White Lotus is full of unlikable characters. And so there, you know, that was always a note that I always kind of cringed at whenever I got it, but I don't get that note anymore. And I think that it's because a lot of people, at least I like to think it's because a lot of people have realized that these complex characters are what people want to see on screen now. And so, you know, you can't have a one-dimensional character anymore. It's too easy to pick out. And so I think that in a positive way, I don't feel like I get a lot of notes that I disagree with right now. I don't get a lot of people saying, I don't like that she did this. And particularly with women, you know, that doesn't really happen to me as much anymore. But that also might speak to the producers I'm working with. I love all my producers so much. I work a lot with Gina Matthews, who is just incredible. She produced 13 Going on 30. Isn't It Romantic? She's really great. I work with her and Todd Gardner, and they work a lot together. And I just like, I get great feedback. And so I think part of it is that in the kind of shift in the industry, like I really feel like people like to nurture your characters, maybe. So it becomes more about, like, the notes I'm getting are more about how to take it to the next level. What is even more interesting about her? Like, what are you pulling out? What's another layer to her? And those are the notes as a writer you love to get and are interesting and fun to play with. So I think I definitely in the past have had moments where I disagreed with a note. And I think I always kind of try to sit with it and think, oh, there's got to be a note within that note that is useful. Because you work with good people and everybody usually has a really great opinion. And so I kind of try to look at it that way, as if there's something that I really have like a visceral reaction to, that's one thing. Then you can sit back and say, how am I going to respond to this, and take a moment to kind of, you know, articulate your views. And that's definitely happened to me before. But I think recently it's really been about kind of making those characters even more complicated and more real and more empathetic and strong. And I don't mean strong in like the character, but strong as a character.
Yeah. Like, very layered.
It's really interesting that you talk about that note that you're getting, but do you think it's because there's also more inclusivity in the rooms that you sit in with the people who are giving notes, because
Definitely.
I'm finding all the way around that because inclusivity is just a thing that everyone's pushing for right now,
Mhm.
that it just affects every area. The people who are giving notes, the people who are taking in, new scripts, and they're all having different opinions about
Right.
the type of characters that they also want to see as well.
Sure.
So do you see a difference in how that room looks as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think, I do a lot of work in features, which doesn't have a room. It's just me and producers, and so what I think is, because people are so aware, I think people are very conscious, myself included, that there are also things you can't comment on. So I think that there are certain, like, if a character has a certain background, or an actor or actress has a certain background and they're the person to best comment on it, they're the person who you should be listening to. And I think that there's a lot of I think because of that, there's a lot of awareness around that. And I think that that's so good, because um, I know that there are certain things I don't know as much about, and that's not I can't give the best note on that. And I do think that people realize that and understand that. And so I definitely see a change, and see that there are, if I don't know someone, or know something, I go to a peer and say, what do you think about this? How can I best serve this character? So I definitely see that a lot. I see that a lot when it comes to languages in a script. Like, if you want a character to speak a certain language, I always am kind of like, well, let's talk to the actor. Let's see what the actor thinks about that and what they feel their character would do. And so I see that in a really positive manner. And I definitely see areas where you can improve. I mean, I think everybody's always learning and growing, but I think that everybody is highly aware, which is such a positive thing.
Yeah. I think it's also too just inclusivity in marketing. Like, I was in Target the other day and I saw an African American plus size model who had vitiligo. And I was like, you would have never seen that 15, 20 years ago. I was like, that is like the epitome of diversity. I saw an Adidas ad and it was like this like plus size girl in like a sports bra, and I was just like, I love that, because Gen Z is not playing. And also too, like, they're like, I matter, I have value, I don't care about if the powers that be accept me. You will hear me, you will see me, period, point blank. And I love it. I love it. I also think that too, it's it's just this, the streaming networks, they're also competing with TikTok. So you can't have people out here who are like making their own content, which is hilarious and dramatic. I mean, in their own homes, and people want to watch it for hours and hours and hours on end, and you not address that in TV and in film and streaming networks. So I also think that, like, networks have had to, like, you have to do it. What else are you going to do?
Oh
You're
yeah.
competing with that.
Oh,
And I
Gen Z
love
will
it.
call out your phony stuff in a heartbeat. All of my nieces are Gen Z, and they are my idols. I mean, they just are like, they are going after everything, and I love it. And it's fantastic. But I think you're totally right. There's so much content that is social media and TikTok and Be Real, and things where people are really pushing authentic voices, and it makes streamers step it up a level, makes networks, everybody has to step up their game.
Yeah. And nobody's telling them that they can't. I think millennials, I don't know about your experience, but I just remember it being like, well, no, you can't do that. Or like, typically this is how it's done. It was a lot of this, like you go to grad school if you want to like make six figures, and then the information age and all these like tech jobs completely like eradicated that. Or, I know Tish, you talked about when we graduated from grad school and like your agent was like, Black girls only do this or that, but like Gen Z,
I dropped her, FYI, immediately.
and you dropped her. But Gen Z, nobody's sitting around saying you can or cannot do this. They're like, you can, and they're so brave and they're bold and they're going after it. And I absolutely love that. You talked a little bit about taking in criticism, taking in notes and whatnot. Were there any, so like when you were starting out as a writer, did you have to like develop any new like ideologies or like a process for like handling like rejection and criticism?
Sure. Although I'm still doing that. So, I started as I was an intern. I started as an assistant, and I think that is so valuable for people wanting to get into the industry, because you need that entry point. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, there's no right way to do anything. And there's no, Andy was in the mailroom. That's how he started. I was an intern, then I was an assistant. That's how I started. I mean, everybody starts somewhere and you learn. And I saw so many writers not take notes from producers, and the projects would never advance. And I think when you take that stuff in, you might not know in the moment that that's really helping your career, but really gave me a good foundation of kind of do's and don'ts of being in this business. And Andy and I have been married now for 6 years, and even learning from each other is so wonderful. And we're still kind of learning that. But as a writer, I think I had to learn really early on, and I think that the sooner any writer learns this, the better. Writing is just rewriting all the time. All the time. You are never done with a script. Even after it is filmed, you're going to edit it. I mean, you are never, ever done. And I think once you can accept that, and you can understand that this is a collaborative process, like that script might be your baby, but it's then going to be the director's baby. It's going to be the actor's baby. It's the producer's baby. It's the editor's baby. It's the crew's baby. I mean, it's a team sport. And so, I think that writing can be very isolating. And I think when you're sitting by yourself and you're creating these characters, you feel such ownership over them. And then I think as the script grows, you have to realize that your one mind might not be what's best for your babies and your project. And the more people who loves it, the better. And so I think that was really important for me to learn early. And it's something that definitely took a couple years, because I would finish something, I'd be so proud of it. And my first pilot I went out with was a boarding school show based off my experience at Exeter. And I was like so proud of this. I was like, this is the thing. This is the thing. And I'm like early 20s, and I'm like, man, no show is better than this show, right? And didn't sell, got me my manager, got me a ton of great meetings. And now I look back at that and I'm like, oh, Kristen, no. And so as long as you can always learn from yourself and the other people around you, I think that is so important. I think it's so important to do your notes. Like I think I very, very, very rarely do I fight a note. I think there's probably something very valuable in every note. And that doesn't mean you don't say, hey, can you explain this further to me? Of course, you talk about notes, you discuss them, whoever you're getting from, director, producer, actor, but you do them. You figure out what is missing for them in the story. Especially for me right now, a lot of my producers are wildly prolific, and I don't believe I know better than them at all. And so, and that doesn't mean you don't have artistic integrity. It just means that you are able to integrate their thoughts and improve your work. And I love working with Todd Gardner so much. And one thing I love about him is he gives a hard and fast note, and I'll be like, right, yep. And almost every time he gives a note, I'm like, should have got that, should have thought of that. And every time I have that, like, should have thought of that moment, I'm like, oh, it's a great note. And so I think learning to take notes is so, so, so important, but it is a skill because it is hard. It's criticism. You're sitting there, for an hour on a Zoom or in person or whatever, having somebody what feels like tear apart your script. That's not it. It's show business, and they're trying to take you to the next level. And you learn so much from it. And then all of a sudden you get less and less notes. And then the next project, you get less feedback because you're like, oh, right, I got better the last time. And I think that especially for younger writers, that's really important to learn, and a hard lesson to learn in the beginning, especially. And then it just becomes second nature.
Do you think part of that is because you found like people in your community that you could trust with your writing?
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like also when you read scripts sometimes, it's just really the community that you have and the people who really believe in the authentic voice that you have, because people can mess it up. I mean,
sure,
people can mess it up.
Absolutely. I am so blessed with the producers that I work with. I love them. I trust them. I definitely pass on projects where I don't feel that creative connection, because a lot of times I'm writing on spec, which means you write a whole script, you spend years on a project that you may or may not sell. And so being able to trust your creative partners is vital. Absolutely. And, I'm so lucky because I have a built-in partner with my husband, and we work a lot together. And his company, Oops Donuts, is incredible. And they have so many, he has his partner, Betsy, and his director of development, Mary Kate. And I mean, poor Mary Kate, she has to read every one of my scripts no matter what. And I'm always like, please help me proofread this, give me notes, give me thoughts. And bless her, she does it every time. And so, I definitely have built that community, but that's something that you kind of develop over time. And you almost don't know you're doing it when you're doing it. And that also is kind of like, rejection in this town is so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard. It's so hard. It's like getting punched in the face over and over again.
The heart.
Yeah.
Stabbed in the heart, punched in the face, stabbed in the heart.
What your teacher said, can we find a more fun word, like word stabbed in the heart, like that?
Get it on a t-shirt. But so it's very, very hard, but I always try. I had my best year of this year, and I had my hardest year. I had some great projects with some just incredible A-list actors attached that I just idolize. And I think I got almost 60 passes across 3 projects. I mean, just brutal, absolutely brutal. And I just remember, and they all went out kind of at the same time. So it was just like, it was so tough. And I remember afterward being like, okay, all right, you have to keep going. What's next? What are we doing next? But you then kind of take, all right, what did I gain from that project? What did I gain from that project? And whether it's a relationship or something you feel like you learned creatively, or you found a new partnership, like you always learn something from every project that is so valuable. And then at a couple months later, I found myself doing projects with 90% of the people I'd worked with earlier in the year, totally new projects that came up. And you're like, oh, right. That's, one door closes, a window opens. And I think that if you can try to turn, even if it's something small, turn any sort of rejection into a positive, I think that that's the only way you survive. And I keep thinking about, you watch, like, I love watching the Emmys and I love the Oscars, and you watch those shows. And I used to think, oh, when anybody won a big award or, a WGA award or something, like, oh, this is the best, this is the most important day of their career. And now I'm like, oh, no, it's not. It's probably not at all. The most important day of their career is probably, dealing with every single no they got. And the next day writing again, because that's hard. And everybody goes through it. And so, I think really walking myself through all those rejections and saying, okay, what did I gain from this? What did I gain from this? The best thing I can do today is write. The best thing I can do is write something. And I always have a list of ideas going. I have so many things I want to write. And so I kind of look at that list and I'm like, what's next? And I find myself usually pretty backed up. And so I know I always have something, and sitting down and like facing the blank page is always the best thing you can do after those, because then you find your new inspiration, and projects come back around too. It's never, I don't think anything is ever truly just done. And so, I mean, I've had that boarding school pilot I wrote, my first one, we've gone out with it like 3 times. Because someone will be like, hey, we're looking for boarding school. And I'll be like, so
stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Okay. So, it's tough. And I think that having your community is vital to that, kind of, even my friends who aren't in the industry, who've had to, listen to me talk about it endlessly, that, and they're like, you did what? What happened? And so that support system is important, but your own drive is the most important thing. Nobody is going to take care of yourself like you. Nobody is going to push you like you. And I think that that's the only way you kind of get through those moments, because they are hard.
Can I ask you another question? Because you mentioned community, and if you listen to the podcast, you know that community is a huge thing for this show. Because a lot of people who are a target audience, they don't know how to recognize who their community is, or how to like find signs. Because you think, and I've had this experience, and I love Andy too, because he's taught me so much about community and the type of people that you want to work with. And I tell myself all the time, like I have an example of a person who shows me what community is, right? For myself. But how can people recognize when you have like people with accolades who are like super huge and they do all these things or whatever, whether or not these people are part of your community? Because sometimes the accolades, like, oh, they did this movie and that movie, can blind people to who really believes in them. So how are you able to find that out? Because not everybody's for you,
Right.
in this industry, even if they have all these accolades. Like, they'll sometimes like really diminish your dreams and make you feel like crap just because they've been successful in this one area.
Yeah, well, that person is definitely not your community. I think time, really, because I think the more time you spend with someone is how you figure out who they are as a person, no matter what. Accolades are great, but I think somebody who gives you their time, right? So like somebody who says, yeah, I'll read your script. Yes, I'll give you thoughtful notes. Like that's a lot of work. I mean, if I read somebody's script and give notes, that's half a day. I mean, maybe I'm slow, but like I try to be thoughtful and think about it. And so I think somebody who really gives you your time, and not just once, and somebody who doesn't shy away when you fail, is also somebody who's in your community, because you're going to fail. Yeah. And somebody who encourages you, not just to like not give up, but somebody who has thoughtful ideas of what you can do better. Like the people who really want to elevate you in your life, you'll feel that. Like, I'm writing a comedy with a girlfriend of mine. We met on Instagram, and she is so encouraging and wonderful. But even when something doesn't sell, or as something that we're so sure is going to be the one, she is still always there, and she is still like, it sucks, this, it's hard, but your next one, the next, like those types of words that aren't empty. And I also think it's important to note that like mentors and community doesn't mean like a person who will get you a job, right? Like I think that I meet some people who see a connection and will go, oh, that person can call so-and-so who will then do this. And like, it doesn't work that way. Like you need someone who's going to nurture your talent and your creativity first. Because if your content, if you're not the best creative voice you can be, then, the phone calls or the jobs or whatever, you're not going to thrive. And so I think that if you look at people who give you their time and really give you constructive criticism, not just criticism, certainly anybody who puts you down is not in your community. That is not, and sure, there's like tough love, but tough love is, hey, I don't think this script is ready to be seen. Here's what I think you could do to make it ready to be seen. That's tough love. But, so I think that probably time is the biggest factor, and in both giving it and evaluating who a person really is.
And you mentioned earlier too. Oh, go ahead, Bestie.
I was gonna say, I'm glad she said that, because I think it's so important for people to understand, because we're all, when you're a creative, we all just want one person to believe in us in the time that we want them to believe in us. And we want it now, and sometimes it's just not the time. And I found that out myself. It's just like it's a timing thing too,
I think everybody has to find that out the hard way usually. At least I feel like that's how I found it out. And so it's, I mean, there is no overnight success in this town. There's like, there was something Andy used to say. It was like 10 years in an overnight or something like that, where it's like,
I know what you're talking about. It's like it takes 8 to 10 years to make for an overnight success or something like that.
Yeah. And like that's so true. And like, some of my family members being like, oh, Lin-Manuel Miranda just did Hamilton and became famous. And I'm like, no, he didn't.
He was a substitute and workshopped that for years. Like for years. When you get into his story, because I am the research queen.
Yes,
you're like, oh, this was like, it was a history to that. He even talks about like his wife. He's like, I don't know why she married me. Like she just believed that. Like, no, he said that. He's like, she just believed that, like, it would all work out, because he was like, I was, a struggling playwright. I was a substitute teacher. I mean, he was workshopping those plays. I mean, not even like off Broadway, like he was workshopping them in like the public school system circuit.
And then I think he did the music for Bring It On. He did In the Height. I mean, he did a ton before.
Because he almost had an education.
Bring It On.
And you also mentioned too, I just wanted to comment on a few things that you said, just for like our creatives, filmmakers, writers out there. You talked about earlier how it also can happen like indirectly. I think sometimes people, I know for a long time, I found myself in that position where I was like, I don't have community. I don't have people in this industry that I know. And then all of the people that like I went to school with, or that I was like coming up with, like my best friend Tish, it's like those are your community, like, because those people are working and those people are out there going after their dreams. And it's sometimes you don't even know that it's happening, but it is happening. And I don't think that I used to think I need a mentor and I need this, but I also didn't realize that sometimes you can have indirect mentorship. And then you mentioned the lady that you're co-writing with that you met via Instagram, and how you can have members in your community that you collaborate with. You can have members in your community that support you. You know, I see how your best friend, like you said, sometimes you just need somebody to vent to and to talk to about that rejection. So then you can continue to do the work so you can become that overnight success in 10 years.
So like it'll probably be 20 for me, but you know.
Well, you know, tomato, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody, you know, I'm such a firm believer that you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yes.
And you know, I just don't think I could put one foot in front of the other if I didn't think that everything happened for a reason. But I also feel like I've seen it so much. And, you know, I used to be, I mean, I still am. I'm a big fan of the show Alias with Jennifer Gardner. And when I watched that show, I was young and I was like, well, I have to do martial arts now. So I did Taekwondo for 10 years to get a black belt because I wanted to be Sydney Bristow. And now my writing, I love action comedies with women. And I know exactly where it came from. I keep the Alias pilot like right over here so I can read it anytime I want because I love it. And so like, and any kind of action thing I write, the next one's always better, right? And I know that I can see all these little things that have informed it, and I can see things that I did on you know, a movie a couple years ago that I'm now doing better here. And so it is, I mean, there's just no substitute for time and learning and writing and reading. And I think that there is, especially in Hollywood, that can be very youth focused, that it's, you know, you always feel like you're running out of time. And I think that I've really had to let that go, especially after I had a baby, and say, no, like you have to keep going at your own pace creatively and trust the process, which can be frustrating and hard and really difficult, but really important. And I think building your community happens within that.
You know, it what you said just reminded me, I read your blog, Kristen Writes Things.
Which, by the way, started at the beginning of the pandemic. Sorry, I missed that.
Yes. Oh, I think there was a lag in the video. But you know, I was looking at one of your blogs and you mentioned that how at one point you were like, okay, I had this baby and now I guess my dreams are done. And you were like, what? Like, how could I even think that? Like, this is informing my writing even more. And I just one of the things that I can say that I see like a through line with you is that you're very you do a lot of introspection. I see that in your post on Instagram. I see that in your blog. And just even now with you talking, you're like, everything has value, everything has a purpose, everything happens for a reason. And it seems like you do a lot of self-examination, and then you practice like self-compassion. I think there's so many people, moms, people who are past the age of 30 or 40 in the industry who believe what you just said, that they're like running out of time, but they're like not realizing that everything that you're doing is informing the next thing that's informing the next thing. For those people who have lost hope, because we're also just living in a climate where there's a lot of beautiful things happening, but there are a lot of people out there who are just feeling very hopeless and defeated. They've been in this marathon for like a quick hot 10-year minute, 20-year minute. Can you just like tell us a little bit about just like when you had your baby, when you had Georgie, like
Yeah.
how you were able to like process all of those things so you can continue to keep going.
So I had Georgie May 2019, and Andy had just finished filming Playing with Fire, and he was going into post for it, and the release date had moved up, and so he was really working overtime,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was in kind of a bit of a panic. And when you're a first time mom, everything's terrifying, right? Everything is scary. You're like, am I, if I bathe the baby the wrong way, what's going to happen? Like, it's just like all the things that I'm now like, you're fine. I was not like that when she was born. And I think breastfeeding is really difficult, and I really, really struggled with that. And I think mom shame, mom pressure, like there's so many things. There's so many wonderful things about social media, and there are so many terrible things about social media. And I know everybody wrestles with that. I know, there's so many wonderful stories you see, and then there's so many times you're like, oh, look at that mom is perfect, and she looks perfect, and her aesthetic is perfect, and all her photos are perfect, and her kids seem perfect, and she has a job. Like, you look at that, and so
a
Tish is like, testify.
You look at these mompreneurs, Kristen, and you're like, well, how are they doing this? They're like mompreneur, and I'm like, well, how?
No. And so I think that I just hit this wall where I was like, okay, well, I'm never going to work again because I have to keep this human alive. And I, there's no maternity leave when you're a freelance writer. So nobody is paying you your salary to take care of the baby. And so I think that I personally lost a lot of self-value. Even though you're arguably your most valuable self because you've just grown a human and pushed it out of your body, or however you end up, whatever your childbirth experience is, and are feeding it, whatever that journey looks like. Either way, like, you're superhuman, right? You're absolutely superhuman. And it's incredible that I just felt so devalued. And it was nothing. It was certainly nothing Andy did. He's the most wonderful partner and father. It's nothing, it was just the change of my life and your body. And so I didn't feel creative. I felt gross, and I felt just like, I had milk coming out of my body, and I was stretched out everywhere. And you just like it, I was so happy and in love with Georgie, but I was so nervous that my career was going to suffer. And the reality became, which I think probably took a full year for me to fully understand, but little by little I did, that I'd gained so much through that experience, because there is absolutely no way to know what it's like to be a parent until you're a parent. And I had new emotions to draw on. I had comedy from the new human that exited me. And so I realized, like, I gained so much, but it was very hard to see in the moment. And I think what really helped me was watching TV, watching movies, comedy. I think there is absolutely no substitute for laughter and all that. And so, and my husband, of course, was always helpful, and he's very funny and in general, like, just by nature. And so, my mother is very hands-on, and so, and my friendships, my female friendships, I have wonderful friends from college and high school and grade school. And so I think you slowly kind of have to become a new version of yourself, right? It's your own kind of rebirth. And that transformation took me a while. And I think you have to feel those feelings. At least it was my experience, that you kind of have to be like, okay, it's okay. I feel this way. It's okay. This is kind of the process. I really tried to focus on moments with Georgie that were so special. And then I remember my big kind of epiphany. For a very long time, I was like, I can do it without help. I can do it without the babysitter or without daycare or without anything like that. I can write while she's napping. I can, all this stuff.
This is Tish's, like, I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm like, you were up here really preaching to Tish. This is like what she's saying. I'm sorry, keep going.
But it's so like that makes sense. It makes logical sense that, like, okay, I'll have, when they're newborns, they sleep a lot. I'll have a lot of time. Oh my gosh. I was feeding that thing all the time. I was gross. I was washing bottles and pump parts and, and then I was, by the way, I was exhausted. So then I would sit down and look at the page and be like, why can't I form a sentence? What is happening? And so once I finally, and I think it was like 8 months in, we were in New York and Andy was just starting The Crew for Netflix. And I found this incredible babysitter who was like our nanny we were only there a few months because COVID hit, but she was literally, her name was Barbara. Her name is Barbara. I love her. I still love her. And she was like, you can't do all this by yourself. And once you kind of understand that, then that opened up my world where, I felt like, okay, I'm a better mom if I work. I'm a better mom if I create. And once I allowed that to be like my truth, then everything got better. And I was like, okay, it's okay for me to have help because I need to work. I need to do something that's important to my identity apart from being a mom. And I've decided, I think the hardest job on earth is being a stay-at-home mom. I think that is like the absolute hardest thing. And my girlfriends who are stay-at-home moms are just like top tier, like humans. And I mean, I bow down to them. And I think that is perfect for them and their families. Yeah. And I think that, balancing motherhood, especially as a first-time mom, looks so different for everybody, right? And for me, I was like, okay, once I realized help was important and help was the only way I was going to still accomplish my goals as a 34-year-old woman, that became very important. And then that really jump started kind of the next portion of my life where I was more efficient because I was like, I have this time, right? I have this time. It's important. And then I want to be with Georgie. And so I think that there were so many things that motherhood ended up giving to me that I did not foresee. But in those moments when I birthed to 6 months, I was like, it's over for me. I have no more career. How can I do it? Like I was bleak about it. And poor Andy is like, no, you're incredible. You're an incredible mom. You're an incredible wife and you're an incredible writer. And I was like, I'm not. And so, I think that it's so interesting how everybody's experiences are so different, but creatively now I've learned that was such a gift because I now draw on that. I'm going to write a mom show with one of my friends who's on a kids show right now. And we are constantly just texting each other being like, oh my gosh, this happened to me today, it's going in the show. This happened to me today, it's going in the show. And those experiences are so important because, they're relatable. And, there are other women out there who definitely feel the same as you, even if they can't vocalize it the same way as you.
I love
And
that.
I'm glad you said that, because even like now, I'm telling you, I'm on social media, and I'm looking at these moms, and I'm like, well, how the heck? Like,
No.
literally, I started like pinning them and saving them and being like, oh, this is what you have to do. But more recently, I was just like, and I was telling Bestie, I was like, it's really just about the community that you have right now, because even though you had to process that, having people around you who are just like, it's okay, like, we're here while you're trying to figure it out, I feel like it's so important. And that's one of the things, as I prepare for these little ones that I'm doing right now, I'm like, whatever I feel, however I feel, I just need the people who love me around me to just support that. And that has been one of the biggest like revelations for me. I'm just like, my community just needs to be here.
Yeah. And the best advice I ever got was, don't take anyone's advice, because how you are as a mom is going to be so different than anybody else.
Yeah.
And what's important to you as a parent. I mean, I see so many people who are like, sleep training your babies is torture. And I did sleep training for Georgie, and it was the best thing I ever did. And that baby sleeps, which means I sleep, which means I am happy and a good mom, and she's rested and healthy and gets better quick when she's sick. And so, but there are so many moms who are like, no, I co-sleep and I do this, and that works for them. And that's great. But it's just about, before I had Georgie, I didn't know that was going to be important to me. I didn't know that was like going to be a huge part of figuring out our new normal. And so I think that, I just assumed I'd be able to breastfeed easily, and I had a horrible struggle with it. And I was so devastated that I couldn't like exclusively breastfeed this child. And now I always laugh. I'm like, oh my God, why did I put myself through months of like self-loathing over breastfeeding? And that seems so silly now. Like, nobody goes up to you as an adult and is like, breast or bottle. And like, and so I'm kind of like, I look back at how silly that was. But there's so many social pressures on moms, especially.
And the books, Kristen, the books.
But also people just don't know. Like, in New York, I was like a nanny to like some very high profile people while pursuing my acting and hosting career. And I mean, I've worked at like residential treatment facilities. I've worked with kids who just got out of juvenile hall. I mean, you name it. I've worked with kids who were like in the foster care system who have nothing and are super low income and like billionaire kids. And I'm sorry, but the only reason why people think that is just because they don't have experience taking care of kids. Because when you do, you're like, no, you need help. You need a community, whether it's your mom, whether it's a babysitter, whether it's a nanny, whether it's your cousin or your sister, daycare. I mean, now there's this new respiratory disease out, so everybody's like freaking out. So I also just think that it's like one of those things. I don't know if you ever saw that meme where it shows this like kid taking a picture and he has on like these new like Jordan sneakers, and then they show the rest of the apartment and it's like a hole in the wall. And it's like, that's what social media, well, it's like, because social media is like a snapshot in time where it's like people are showing you the best version of themselves. They're not showing you, like, they're like smiling and they're like, oh, this is our cute family pic, but they're not telling you or talking to you about the meltdown that their kid just had in the car and how they like spilled the milk everywhere and they were like completely embarrassed in the store. They don't tell you that. So
it's curated. All your, it's the Instagram curated version of your life, which, I think we all know, like, that's not real. but it's so hard when it's such a huge part of our lives now. I mean, for everything, especially in entertainment, when it's a marketing tool as well. Like, I love social media. Like, I'm so proud of Georgie and Andy in this like life we've built together. And I love sharing that. But I totally know that like there are times I look and I'm like, how'd they do that? How'd she, you know,
and all the time, Kristen. I'm like, how the heck is this even real? Like, I'm just like, no, this can't be real. Like, it can't be. But it's like these images that are ingrained in your head now, you can't get out.
Yeah, exactly. I remember thinking I needed to do like a huge, like big maternity photo shoot, right? Like, and I had to come up with like a really sexy idea. And then I was like so tired when I was pregnant. I had a baby shower, and the photographer is one of my friends from Stanford. And I was like, can you just take a picture of me with the bump? Can you just like, that's it. And I was so happy with that. But like, you know, I definitely think that there are certain things that I look at and I'm like, there's so many, like, you should do this, or this is the right way when, you know.
Yeah.
I had that too, Kristen. Actually, I was on bed rest for a little while, and we went outside. We went outside. We went outside.
No, don't wait a second. Don't play yourself. She did not. She had a Pinterest board because I was there. And she was like, I want to do this really stylistic thing where we do like these Polaroid shots. And yes, you did, bestie. She knew like the type
but it still was in my home. It wasn't like in the studio.
But it was very creative. There was light. It was very creative.
But that's like personal to you and like your creativity and like, you know, I was like, I need a tiger. I need like, what am I going to do? You know, like,
yeah, it was
like, all these like crazy, like, you know, there's a train on the beach and you've got your perfect bump.
I sent you a picture of a lady hanging from the roof, and she was in a little like thing upside down, pregnant. And I thought that was going to be my picture. I thought, and then I wound up going outside, and I was like, oh, I found this image on Instagram. I wound up going outside. We have a lake, and I just sat down by the lake, and I bought this dress off of Amazon, and that was it. That was it, Kristen.
Yeah. I remember being like, I don't have any like naked pictures of my bump. And I remember like taking a selfie before I gave birth in the bathroom, being like, okay, chronicled.
Like, I did that too. I actually did that. I did that too, actually, because I was like, oh, I have that, because I kept seeing it. It's so sad. It's like they make you think you have to have all these things. Do you see this?
Yes.
Do you hear this?
Yeah, like 100%. Sometimes, you know, Andy's very good at bringing me down to earth. Andy's like, what now? And I had this thing that I insisted on washing Georgie's head with when she was a baby, and she had no hair, and I don't even remember what it was, but it was like this blue thing that was like rubber, and you're supposed to rub their top of their heads when you wash it.
Yeah.
And Andy's watching me, and he's like, what is that? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm supposed to do it. And he was like, oh, honey, I think you can just take a washcloth. And I was like, no, this prevents something. And, you know, and he turned it into a whole bit. But yeah, it's just, you know, you just kind of learn what works for you and how your family is going to function. And that is the most important thing.
Yeah. You know, I want to, because I know we're getting very close to the end of the podcast, but I wanted to ask you about, you co-wrote a show called My Dad's a Famous Movie Star, and you did it with Andy, right?
Yes. So Andy and I, so we've, I think we're going to have a title change. But yeah, so we co-wrote that movie. We're casting now, and we had a blast. The movie takes place in Ireland. And that's where my whole family's from. And it's where Andy proposed to me. So there are a lot of like personal connections for us there. Which is so lovely, but we had so much fun. And, you know, we we met through work. And so it's in our nature to collaborate. And I think we're so lucky that, we have such a respectful, fun, loving partnership to begin with. But we really had fun. It was interesting because he was filming while writing half of that. So I think the first half we were kind of scene by scene together, having conversations about moments we didn't agree on. And so we were together physically. And then the second part of it, we were passing back and forth. And both really worked for us. But he is so funny that I kind of know that, like, we know our strengths, and I kind of know, I have the ability to say, I know, here's a joke. I know Andy can do better, right? And so I usually will put a pin in things I know are Andy's strength, and he'll usually come to me for things he knows are my strength. And that works really well for us. It's been so fun. He's directing. And so that's even more fun because he's looking at it through two lenses. And I would love to direct eventually. So it's fun for me to, be like, wait a minute, why? Explain to me why you want it that way. And, he'll say, oh, well, for budget or for this. And that's like so wonderful for me. And so we really had fun doing it together. And we have a few other things we're writing together, and that's always fun. And I mean, we were writing a book together when we started dating. And so, that it's just kind of so natural for us.
Ooh. Yeah, that's so funny because I'm pretty sure that Andy was part of like a comedy troupe, right? At one point.
Yeah.
Wasn't
he told us about that on the show, right?
Yeah, he comes from theater and I come from theater. And so I think that that collaboration is so important. And yeah, he did so much theater in LA, and and he built the Hudson Theater on Santa Monica. So yeah, so he is very, very funny, and has such an incredible eye for talent and for directing that really helps me. And that's really like, it's we always read each other's work. When we're not working together, I love seeing, his directorial work. And it's really like, we're so lucky because it's such a tough business. And to be able to lift each other up when we have hard weeks is so important for both of us, I think.
Yeah.
I love that.
No, I agree. But also we usually have like a really fun question, right? That's at the end of the podcast.
Yes. So I don't know why, but I thought it was an easy question, but the responses that I've been getting back are like, seriously. So I guess usually it's just supposed to be a thought-provoking question. And when Andy was on the show, it was like, what would your chant to make this world a better place be? And of course, he was super hilarious about it. It was like $5 lunches or something like that. I forget what he said. Like it's a Subway song.
You can't take him anywhere, let me tell you. You cannot take that anywhere.
I'm still laughing off that. I was like, hey, like
it was so funny.
But this season, it's since we're filmmakers, we love film. We talked about a lot of films and shows on this particular episode. But this season, it's if you could only watch one movie or television show for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Well, this is actually very easy for me.
Okay.
So my TV show would be Alias. For sure, which I've already mentioned. I can rewatch that. I mean, and I've got like a thing for Victor Garber. I'm very public about it. Like I love him. Literally, and Andy directed him in You Again. and he will not let me near
I
Victor.
love
And I
that.
think it's strategic now. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
it's on purpose, and I don't think it's fair. I think that I should be allowed to work with him on everything. But yeah, I love Victor. I love Ron Rifkin. Oh my gosh. The whole cast, I could just, Michael Vartan, obviously Jen Gardner, like I could watch all of them for ages. Every time I watch the show, I find new little things, or I'll be like, oh, I would have done this different. Like now that's kind of the vibe.
Yeah.
I'll give that a rewatch every couple years, probably. And every time I'm like, oh, my heart, I just love it so much. But I also admittedly have a lot of nostalgia. My dad and I watched that together, and we both just loved it. And my dad was a physician and just a really sweet guy. And he would just, at like some of the reveals in that show, he would gasp. And I always got such a kick out of like, but then if I had to do a movie, and not just because Andy directed it, but it would be She's the Man for sure.
Yes, I love She's the
Andy.
Man. I love the little love interaction between like a man
I'm
and
just a 12th Night. I'm a 12th Night fan, period.
Okay, this is no Shakespeare mug.
Yeah, you know what I actually had when I first got out of grad school, and you know this, Quoia, I actually had like this web series that I was creating around the 12th Night before I saw She's the Man. I literally had a web series. It was going to be like a rendition of that. I was so obsessed with it. So obsessed. It had to be my all-time
things
favorite.
come back around. What did Kristen say? Things come back around.
Things come back around. Do that. Do it. I before I met Andy, that was my favorite movie. And then I remember when I found out he directed it, I would like quote it back to him incessantly. I told you I'm a fangirl. I can't turn it off.
That's where you guys work, because you're like, you can't take him anywhere. You can't take you anywhere.
It's so true. We're a mess.
Like, you're like my Shiro, because that's me. I literally am like, even when I was like researching, I was like, Kristen did this, Kristen did that, and like I just love her, and she's my life, and this and that, because I just get so geeked up over people. I just like, I'm like, but I only tell her that. I don't like do that.
No, but like it's so like, you know, I like I got to develop a show with Denise Denovi, a TV show with her company Patma, and they are magic over there, what they are doing. They're just incredible. But I had to just tell her, I was like, Denise, I love everything you do, and I can't even fathom that I'm working with you. I mean, I think I saw A Walk to Remember like 100 times in theaters.
Oh, me too.
Right?
It was late in September. It was late afternoon. Oh.
I had the soundtrack.
You already know, yeah.
Oh my gosh, Mandy Moore, Shane West. It was just
I live my
to be only yours. I pray to be.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I had that.
Yes. And then she would do like, so good. And then at the end, when he's like, "She got your miracle. It was you," I would be like,
I would watch that movie. My sister was like, you just watch that movie to cry. That in The Notebook. You just want to kiss Selena. You just want to cry. I was just like,
you just want to feel.
It's so good. It's so good.
But she's like, I just like, you know, I fangirl. I just like, I can't help myself.
I love it. I love
What's the point of doing this if you can't fangirl?
I know. I mean, if you, my absolute favorite is when somebody is like, I want to be in TV and film. And then they're like, I don't watch a lot of TV. And I'm like, first of all, don't say that.
Or they act like when they meet people that they absolutely love, that they just are like, I'm just going to play it cool. Like, I'm like, no. I'm like, I love you.
Yeah.
I love you.
I have no chill.
I have no. I'm like, I love you. You're so amazing. Like, I just literally go in. I know.
And it's like, we talked so much about Shonda. Like, I want to work with her more than anything. Yeah. I absolutely should not be allowed to work with her. I would be like, what? Let me write down everything you have said. Let me like, can I record? Like, I just, but like, I don't know. I think if you don't allow yourself to be excited like that, that's what you're putting out into the world too. And I have no shame. I have no chill. I have no shame. One day Andy will let me meet Victor Garber and it will be amazing.
Yeah, and just let you be. Just let you fangirl.
Yeah.
Be
your authentic
fangirl. What's the point of doing this?
I know.
We can't like stand for the people we love. Come on.
Yes.
Come on.
Jen Gardner calls him on Instagram. She calls him Spy Daddy. And I'm always like,
oh my God. That is so hilarious.
What a life, Andy. What a life.
Like, Spy Daddy. And I'm like,
oh my God.
So funny. So
well,
good.
we know that you are doing amazing things. You're going to continue to do amazing things. And now you're a friend to the show. So we know you're always going to come back. Legit to
Always. Anytime. This is so fun. I am so happy that you had me. What an honor.
I love it. And if people want to follow you on social media, can you just shout out your social media handles?
Yes, I am at Kristen Writes Things on Instagram. And then my blog, which is in my profile, is K Writes Things. And that is where you can find me.
Thank you. Thank you. Yay. So everybody, please follow Kristen. Also look out for all of the wonderful things that she is doing and follow her. And yeah, anything you want to say? Oh, and everybody, let's wish Tish the best of luck with these tours.
Yes. Yes. Anything you need, you let me know. If you need any recommends.
Yes. Yes, because
need all that support that you're telling her.
There's too many mom groups out here, and I literally had to turn it off. I had to turn it off.
No, listen, I support you, and I will anything you need, you let us know.
Please text her, because everything that I don't have any children, so I can only be a source of support in my lane. But please text her, because everything you were saying earlier, she needs that. And I understand.
I literally said that, Kristen. You literally, everything that you were talking about, I literally have been saying to her. I'm like, how am I going to do this? Like, literally. So I'll tell
you. Will. I feel you. I feel you. Like you will do it. You just have to give yourself some time and grace.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing.
And some realistic advice. Maybe the writing during nap time. I literally think she said that.
I did say that.
That's not going to happen. So, you guys tag team that, and then, we'll handle that leg of Bestie's life, and then I'll come in and solidify it, and then we'll just I
did say that. That's so funny.
No, I don't think I've ever done it successfully. Because you are so tired by the time that nap time comes. You're going to be and there's this, I know we're out of time, but there's this thing that women or parents do at night that's revenge, staying up late or something. And it's because you don't feel like you have enough time for yourself. And it's I'll find the term for it. There's social media has coined a term that was actually really good. I'll send it to you. But, and I have some good realistic mom accounts that are so fun. That I'll share with you.
In my way, please, because I'm just these super moms, they just kill me. They kill me.
Listen, every mom is a super mom, even if you feel like a hot mess, because it's just, getting through the day is an accomplishment.
Yeah, no, it is. But also, guys, remember, we are on YouTube now, so make sure that you subscribe to us at TLTQT on YouTube, and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. So
and soon to be TikTok, working on it.
Soon to be to TikTok
conversion. Yeah. And also, if you haven't checked it out, check out Andy Fickman's episode, season 1. We're just gonna loop it in. and put it.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's an OG. He's a season winner.
He's
I
a
know.
veteran. He's a veteran
I
of the show. He's a veteran of the show. So yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we're
So
so excited. Thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you, Kristen. Woo!
thank you,
Thank
Kristen.
you,
We love
guys.
you.
Thank
Hashtag
you.
goals.
Hashtag all day, every single day. And we love
Every
you guys. And thank you for the analytics. I always say that when I come on, I talk about the analytics. Thank you guys. Spotify.
Numbers person. All right. There you go, bestie. Go ahead. I'm going to let you have your moment.
Spotify.
All right.
Thank you out there. We appreciate you.
Bye, guys.